as they cultivate robust ecosystems for alternative protein education, research, and innovation. With great honor, I welcome you, Arjun, to start sharing your screen now, please.
Hi, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here. My name is Arjun, and I'm the Academic Community Coordinator here at the Good Food Institute. As Tin said, my current role is centered around the Alt Protein Project, which is our university chapter program where we are working on various alt protein ecosystem building endeavors at the university level and beyond. So today, I'm going to have a quick conversation with you about building a more resilient alternative protein field. This is a guide primarily for students and academics about ways you can better engage with the alternative protein field, join our communities, and how to start a career or build upon the career that you already have in the alternative protein field. Please let me know if you have any questions. I did want to leave some time at the very end. Okay, so very quickly, I'll just go over what I'll be talking about today. To start with, I'll just briefly discuss the case for rethinking meat as we know it. I'll provide a brief introduction to the Good Food Institute, and I'll discuss the alternative protein landscape as it is right now. Then I'll discuss the role that you as students and academics play in building this alternative protein ecosystem. And then I'll dive into the resources and career opportunities in alternative proteins. And I did want to spend most of my time discussing this last section, which are all the various resources that we have available for you to use as you're building your career or pursuing an education centered around alternative proteins. So let's just start with this. How will we feed 10 billion people by 2050? The caloric needs of the population will be significantly greater than what we have today. And there's just severe gaps and bottlenecks in the way our current food system is structured that will prevent this from being a possibility. Our goal is that by 2050, we'll be able to feed 10 billion people sustainably, efficiently, and safely. However, there's a lot of issues related to the current ways that we produce our meat, specifically in terms of the consequences of industrial animal agriculture. For example, industrial animal agriculture is consistently in the top 2 to 3 most significant contributors to the world's most pressing environmental issues. These include issues related to water use, air pollution, and the loss of biodiversity. Additionally, industrial animal ag is responsible for an immense amount of greenhouse gas emissions. Finally, there's a lot of efficiency-related issues. It takes a lot of crops being grown, fed to our animals to feed us. In fact, it takes 9 calories of food fed to a chicken to produce 1 calorie of meat. Additionally, so much of our agricultural land is focused on raising and feeding livestock, yet it only provides 1/3 of the global protein supply. Next, there's a diversity of safety-related concerns. For example, there are already labor-related concerns for meat packing and slaughterhouses. However, there's also issues in terms of antibiotics. For example, animals in the United States consume more than twice as many medically important antibiotics as humans. And based on current results, medical experts estimate that there's going to be 10 million annual deaths from antimicrobial resistance, which is incredibly dangerous. At the same time, global meat demand shows no sign of slowing. This is especially true for low and middle income countries as demographics become wealthier and many tend to consume more meat. So we can expect immense increases in the consumption of meat just across the board. So this is where GFI comes in. So the current challenge is that the current ways that we're producing our meat, eggs, and dairies is highly unsustainable, inefficient, and is a key driver for many of the social and environmental health challenges that we're experiencing today and that we will experience tomorrow. Our solution is to accelerate alternative protein innovation by creating meat, eggs, and dairies more sustainably and efficiently by making them from plants, cultivating them from cells, or producing them by fermentation. So instead of asking consumers to give up the foods that they love, GFI is accelerating the transition to alternative proteins and helping make these same products that are just as delicious, if not more delicious, just as affordable, and just as accessible. So a little bit more about the Good Food Institute. So we're a nonprofit and we're primarily focused on accelerating alternative protein innovation. We do this through 3 key divisions: our Science and Technology Division, our Corporate Engagement Division, and our Policy Division. We also work around the world in various offices, ranging from the United States to Brazil, to India, to Israel, and beyond. In our work, we really like to ensure that a lot of the knowledge that we gather is shared openly and freely. This is why we highly recommend you to look through our website to look at all the various resources that we have that are available to you, or to reach out to us if you're interested in learning more about various aspects of the alternative protein field. We also like to focus on the white spaces. We like to focus on the gaps that not only exist today, but will exist in 5, 10, 15, 20 years and beyond for the alternative protein field. This is where a lot of our emphasis is placed. Additionally, we like looking at the big picture perspective. We want to see what we can do to reduce the detrimental impacts of industrial animal agriculture and promote a more sustainable food system in the decades to come. So, what do we want to do? We want to make meat, but we want to do that in a better way. We want to create products that taste the same or better. They are as or more convenient. They cost the same or less and are sustainable, secure, and just. Currently, the alternative protein landscape, as many of you already know, is comprised of plant-based products, fermentation-derived products, and cultivated products. However, the alt protein industry is incredibly small when it comes to it's such a small fraction of the actual meat industry, especially if you're taking into account the additional amount of meat consumption that's going to be required to feed the populations by 2050. Fortunately, consumers are open to replacing meat with alternatives. So there's a lot of hope in the growth of the alternative protein field, and we really have we really believe that this is something that is going to be possible and feasible, especially in the coming decades. So I just want to really quickly go over each of these different pillars and like some of the key areas of potential for innovation. So as many of you already know about plant-based products, they're composed of the same macronutrients as their animal product counterparts. However, these next-gen products will taste and cook like conventional meat and offer complex carbs and fibers. There's plenty of key research and development white space opportunities, and I'm actually going to go into these in more detail and how you can get involved in addressing some of these research and commercial gaps later in the presentation. Additionally, there's a lot of hope in this field because the competitive landscape is proliferating rapidly. It seems like almost every week or every month there's a new plant-based meat company that is getting started. So this is very exciting news. Moving on to cultivated meat. Cultivated meat is produced directly from animal cells, and it really does facilitate the same biological processes that happen inside an animal. We provide the cells with all the resources they need to be able to build the muscle and fat that you see in these conventional animal products. Additionally, like I said, there's so many R&D, areas of R&D that need to be delved into in greater detail. And I'll go into more detail about that later on. In the same vein, while cultivated meat is not as developed as a field as plant-based products, there is immense growth in the competitive landscape. And we're seeing each year so much more funding getting poured into cultivated meat companies, which is really great news. Finally, we have fermentation. So fermentation is more of an enabling technology, and it will allow the production of standalone proteins or the functional ingredients for alternative protein products. To summarize, fermentation is a mature technology. It's been in use for decades. It has proven scale, it's low cost, and there's just a diversity of platforms due to the number of diverse microorganisms that can be used in fermentation. There's 3 different types of fermentation that are utilized for alternative protein products. This includes traditional fermentation, biomass fermentation, and precision fermentation. I'll go into more detail about that later on as well. So what does the future of the alternative protein field look like? What are these products going to look like as well? We believe that animal product alternatives will occur on a spectrum that will essentially be a hybrid between fully plant-based and fully cultivated products. So these pillars they should not be siloed. In fact, we believe that there can be a lot of synergies between them. Another really good sign is that there have just been record-breaking investments over the past few years, especially in 2020 and 2021. We're seeing just so much funding getting poured into this, which is a really great sign for the future of the industry and the health of it. So in recent years, we've made leaps and bounds in the alternative protein field. However, ample white space remains. As I previously discussed, there are opportunities that exist across the entire alternative protein ecosystem. ranging from various plant-based research priorities, cultivated research priorities, and fermentation research priorities. There's also so many opportunities that exist across sectors. I know many of you are academics, so you'll primarily focus on research, teaching, and workforce training. However, there are ways that you can also engage with various other sectors, including industry, like businesses, established companies, investors, governments for research, funding, and regulatory support, and then nonprofits like us at GFI, where we can support you through the various initiatives that you're trying to work on. More specifically, and more in line with my role, we believe that universities are critical engines for accelerating alternative protein innovation. This is because universities are just the perfect breeding ground for innovation on all fronts. You can build alternative courses and majors and train the future of the workforce. You can ensure that the alternative protein field is diverse by prioritizing underrepresented groups in the educational process. You can begin alternative protein research projects, and you can investigate these critical research gaps and white spaces that currently exist and advance the state of alternative protein science. You can also help build infrastructure at your universities to accelerate research in these fields. Additionally, universities are also great places to innovate. A lot of these research projects that happen can be commercialized, and it's great to see a lot of students and researchers and faculty with entrepreneurial spirits that are starting their own alternative protein companies from the research that they're doing. Finally, you can build a community of like-minded individuals who want to break down interdisciplinary barriers and just act as a force multiplier for the field as a whole. We know this is possible. Our alt protein project student groups, these university chapters that we're running, have shown us that it's possible. In fact, in our first pilot year, 2020 to 2021, our student groups from across the world did so much. With fewer than 200 leaders, they were able to initiate 13 courses and modules, support 17 research proposals, engage with over 600 faculty, host nearly 80 events with almost 2,000 live attendees. And this is just a small snapshot of what our student groups were able to do in just our first year. It's clear that the university is a key area for engaging and building upon the alternative protein ecosystem. Now, what we've narrowed down is that there are key disciplines for study that will be most useful at the university level for accelerating this process of ecosystem building at the university level. These include biochemistry, food science, plant science, tissue engineering, mechanical engineering, microbiology, protein chemistry, computer science, data science, and synthetic biology. And each of these plays a critical role in each of the different alternative protein pillars. However, it's not just this area of scientific expertise that's important. There is an immensely high demand for the right combination of scientific expertise and entrepreneurial spirit. And additionally, there's also plenty of other fields that are critical for advancing alternative proteins around the world. These include top areas like public health, sociology, computer science, nutrition, business, communication, and investing. So definitely don't just feel that science and engineering are the only areas that are important to accelerating this field. Now, this is where I wanted to focus the bulk of my presentation. I wanted to showcase the various resources that we have available for you as students and academics to actually get involved and build an alternative protein ecosystem or kickstart your own alternative protein career. To start with, we have a Pioneers of the Future of Food interview series. You can find this on the GFI website. So this showcases various profiles of scientists and engineers who are working to build a sustainable food system through alternative protein innovation. This is a great place to start if you're interested in innovating or starting research on your own and want to see how other people have done it. Next, what I would consider to be one of our most important research resources is our solutions database. Now, if you're interested in starting a course or starting research or starting a company, this is the place where we would recommend that you get started. Over the past few years, GFI has worked with nearly 200 experts from around the alternative protein field to put together this solutions database. This outlines the key white spaces and research gaps that exist in the field and need to be resolved. Without these research gaps being solved, it will be extremely difficult for the alternative protein field to achieve success. And we think that this is the best place to start if you're trying to innovate in the alternative protein field. what I would recommend that you do is go to the solutions database and filter for the criteria that you find most useful. For example, if you're interested in cultivated meat, you can add a filter for cultivated meat. Or if you are interested in research, you can filter for research and development. And if you're involved in the university ecosystem in some way, you can also filter for academia. In that way, you'll see the perfect solutions or research gaps and white spaces that exist for your specific needs and your specific skill set. So I would highly recommend to start here. This is where our student groups start actually when they're looking to start a research project, or let's say they're putting together a hackathon or an event to resolve a key commercial or research white space. Next, if you're interested in funding, I would highly recommend that you take a look at all of the research grant and funding resources available on our research grants webpage. So GFI, not only do we have this research grants webpage, which is filled with a competitive research grants program, a exploratory research grants program, and also a research funding database, which has all of these different research funding opportunities that are adjacent to or directly related to alternative proteins. So if you're interested in seeking funding for alternative protein research, we'd highly recommend that you take a look at this. Additionally, recently, we've also put together a research grants tracker that showcases the current research that's being funded, the stage it's in, who's funding it, and various other details that's involved, just in case you'd want to get a better idea of who is funding alternative protein research, how much are they getting, and what exactly they're doing. I also know that many of you are interested, especially students, are interested in starting alternative protein careers. So a great resource that we recommend you utilize is our alternative protein career portal and alternative protein company database. So our career portal showcases various job opportunities that are available for you, in addition to like what kind of skill sets they're looking into and links to these application pages. We also have an alternative protein company database in case you want to know all the different companies out in this space associated with each of the different alternative protein pillars. Both of these are incredibly useful resources if you're interested in starting a career in the field. Next, and one thing that I consider to be incredibly important, is just getting engaged with the community. We believe that being able to collaborate and share your ideas and work together with one another is just crucial to advancing this field. So to start with, if you're a student, I'd highly recommend you consider joining our Alt Protein Project community. So this is, again, our global student-led movement, and our main goal is for students and faculty and other alternative protein champions to work to turn their universities into engines for alternative protein education, research, and innovation. Currently, we're not accepting applications. However, we're going to be accepting applications in the coming months when we open up our applications sometime in March or April, and we'll be accepting a cohort of new university chapters. Next, I'd highly recommend joining the GF Ideas community. So this is full of thousands of individuals who are involved in accelerating the alternative protein field. These include entrepreneurs, scientists, students, and SMEs who are working to drive alternative protein innovation, many who are seeking collaborators, many who can provide advice and mentorship and support. Next, I'd recommend looking into the Collaborative Researcher Directory if you're interested in connecting with researchers who are active in the alternative protein space, or if you're a student or who's looking to work under a researcher or a faculty member who's looking to find a collaborator. Next, you can also add yourself to our talent database, which is the go-to for startups and academics who are interested in expanding their teams. This is a great place to get started if you, again, want to get involved in the field. Finally, I want to just go over some resource guides and manuals that will kind of walk you through this whole process of how to build an alternative protein ecosystem. The first is our student resource guide. So this is crucial for students in kind of explaining like what are alternative proteins and what are the various activities you can do to kind of expand alternative protein education, research, innovation, and community building at your university and beyond. The next is our Good Food Startup Manual. For those of you who are interested in starting your own alternative protein companies, we can walk you through the process of how to start this company, how to secure funding, and more. On our website, there's also an entire web page devoted to resources for entrepreneurs. And you can also reach out to us if you'd like help in starting your own alternative protein company. Finally, for those, this is probably most useful for students, but for those who are interested in starting a career in the field, there are other helpful resources as well, like the 80,000 Hours Job Board and the Animal Advocacy Career Skills Profile. We highly recommend that you utilize these if you're interested in joining the field. And each of them offer one-on-one calls for career advice. So those are the various resources that GFI has available to you. And we believe that they'll be incredibly useful for you as you pursue a career in the alternative protein space. And again, remember, if you have any trouble navigating the website, or if you would like to schedule some one-on-one meetings with subject matter experts at GFI, we're more than available to do that with you. So that's all I have to share today. I wanted to open this up to some audience questions and answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Arjun, thank you so much for this interesting presentation. And thank you for all the work that you do and how you actually manage to connect people in this field. It's really remarkable. It was really motivating listening to you talk and seeing how many people are actually working towards the same goal. I'd like to please start with the first question now. What are the current milestones happening in academics when it comes to alt protein?
Yeah, so I would like to ask a clarifying question on that as well. What specifically are you referring to? Like student endeavors, endeavors by faculty, or just like full like university scale?
I'd say just like full university scale milestones. Like how far have university come when it comes to alt protein field, and also you can include alt protein projects in that and all student activities.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. So, 5 years ago, this field is like kind of like just being born, and it's still relatively nascent. But what we've noticed is that in the 1 year that we have noticed, in the 1 year that we've had the Alt Protein Project up and running, we've been able to see like some of the first ever alternative protein courses come into existence, the first ever alternative protein research projects getting funded at the university level. It's honestly phenomenal to see how rapidly the field is growing and how students, faculty, researchers, and administrators are catalyzing this innovation. All it takes is a little bit of nudging and a little bit of excitement to get that started. So some of the biggest milestones I'd say are, the multitude of courses that our Alt Protein Project student groups have been able to get started around the world. We've also had several research proposals that they've helped faculty submit. And on top of that, there's just a variety of like ecosystem building that's been occurring between universities as well. One that GFI had a hand in that I think is incredibly notable is the creation of this National Institute of Cellular Agriculture, which is a partnership between multiple universities in the United States and was funded by the United States government, which I think is just phenomenal. And we'd love to see more multidisciplinary, multi-institutional partnerships centered around alternative protein innovation like that in the future. And I think there will be.
That sounds so exciting, and I'm really hopeful for the future. How many alternative protein projects do you expect to have in 2022? And what are your plans in general for 2022?
Yeah, so again, initially we piloted only 5 groups, but we had so much excitement from other universities that it ended up growing to 16. Right now, we have a pretty extensive number of universities that are excited to join us. Unfortunately, we will not be able to accept all of them, but I think we're looking to add somewhere in the ballpark of at least another 16 student groups, although we have excitement from far, far, far more. I believe that we could have 100 overnight if we were to accept every single group that wanted to join. But again, we're looking for the students who are aligned with this vision of ecosystem building through educational programming, research, advancement, and innovation through entrepreneurial related activities. And I guess the vision for the Alt Protein Project in 2022, well, we want our student groups to continue just doing all the great work that they're doing. We want to have an effective onboarding process where we're expanding these student groups and having them interact well with one another. And let's see what else. I think, that's pretty much it. I'll let you know if there's anything else that I've forgotten to mention about the Alt Protein Project. But
okay, great. It sounds so exciting. You're actually doubling your number of alternative protein projects. So we have a question from the audience. Within the interdisciplinary majors and career fields, I couldn't find any resources to find internships in them. Most companies look for R&D business. For people passionate about public health, policy, economic development, etc., can you please provide mentorship on how to pursue careers that complement our majors?
Yes. So again, just to clarify, a lot of the future jobs, many of them for the alternative protein field don't yet exist. This is a critical role that the Alt Protein Project student groups are playing, and many other student groups around the world are also playing, which is we're trying to build out the talent pool, the workforce, and the pipeline into the career force. So this is why it's incredibly important to emphasize ecosystem building at the university level, since this is such a crucial pipeline into the workforce. So like even the traditional pathways into the alternative protein field, many involve researchers who have been, or scientific experts who have been in the field for like a different field for 20 years, who then join an alternative protein company. So it doesn't have a lot of space for early career scientists to join the field. But one thing that we've noticed is that this is definitely changing. And we've had a lot of our Alt Protein Project student leaders, whether bachelor's or master's or PhD students, end up going directly into alternative protein companies. So we're seeing this change, and they're not all specifically in the research field as well. Many of them are in more of the social sciencey or public health spaces. So there are changes, and it's happening slowly, but again, it's crucial for students, faculty, administrators, and others to catalyze this change at the university level. That's the only way that we're going to have those openings.
Interesting. What are the key requirements universities need to become alternative protein projects?
Yes, so what we're looking for is we're looking for a group of students at their university who are excited to catalyze change. We want them to know what alternative proteins are and what they aren't, and we want them to show that they are excited to not only build a community, not only get people excited, but also like actually create systemic change at their universities. This can be through developing a new course or a new major, or by kickstarting a new research project, or getting students involved in research projects, or even creating a startup. In fact, we have one Alt Protein Project group where they're actually trying to work on an alternative protein startup, and it's really exciting. So we just want to see these student groups excited to, make waves within their university ecosystem and across different universities.
Well, if you'll be conducting interviews, it looks like you'll have a lot of work this year, since you said you had over 100 applications.
No, we haven't opened up the application pool yet. We do have a lot of schools in the waiting list. I was just saying that I wouldn't be surprised if we were to take every group that we could easily have 100 overnight.
Right, I agree. Yeah. Can you expand a bit on the role that data science can play in the alternative protein landscape?
Yes, so I'm not specifically an expert in this exactly, but I do believe that data is going to be core to the progression of the field. And I suppose what I can do is I can talk to some of the subject matter experts on my science and technology team at GFI and get back to you on that, if that would be helpful.
Sure, yeah. Can you predict the importance of the Good Food Institute on the development of the alternative protein field? How is GFI growing over the years?
Yeah, so GFI considers itself to be a field catalyst. Our whole point of existence is to support the alternative field and accelerate the transition to this more sustainable form of protein production. I suppose that, I think what we're trying to do, especially over these next few years, is address these key research and commercial gaps. That's by encouraging people to get involved in the various solutions that we've listed on our solutions database, which I shared earlier. This is by addressing significant regulatory roadblocks around the world, and by engaging with these corporations and helping facilitate the starting of companies in the alternative protein field as well. So we're really trying to be just central to the key components that we believe are necessary for this field to achieve success in the coming decades.
Yeah, you guys are definitely a huge resource to all of us students, and I'm sure many other individuals around the world, probably the pioneers of a kind. So we have another question. Since there is a limited amount of jobs available, do you think it's more important to start working in the alt protein industry first and then focus on learning the specific role of the job, or should we pursue further careers and then try to find a niche job?
Yeah, so this one's really tough to answer because I guess the landscape differs based on where you're located as well, right? For example, if you're in somewhere like the San Francisco Bay Area where there's plenty of alternative protein companies and so many jobs and a lot more jobs available, I'd give you different advice than if you were, let's say, in another country where there might not be as many alternative proteins that you can work in. So this is very context dependent based on where you are. What I would recommend is that you kind of scope out the landscape of your local and regional landscape to see what the situation is for the various alternative protein organizations that do exist. And again, you can do that by looking through our company database or our collaborative research directory. Are there researchers involved in alternative proteins and where you're living? Are there alternative protein companies there? You can literally go to those databases on our website and filter for location and see what the landscape looks like for you and what kind of jobs are available. And you can make the decision that way. So it's kind of hard to make a comment on this. Yeah. However, as I previously discussed, diving into the key disciplines will be incredibly important if you are interested in finding a job in the alternative protein fields, and we consider to be those to be the most impactful programs that you can pursue to get a job in the field.
Great. And here's another one from the audience. Will GFI be open to guiding students to start their own interdisciplinary think tank organization, such as a public health organization focuses only on alternative proteins and providing many different services such as consultant, policy innovation, and research?
Yeah, so I think a lot of this depends on the bandwidth of our team, since I know that we have a relatively small team. It's around 130, 140 people working around the world. But based on bandwidth, we do usually provide ad hoc support for the various needs that people have. And again, if we're not able to directly guide you through this whole process, we at least have the communities that can help you kickstart those, right? So this is the point of having all the various resources that I've shared with you today, is that we have communities of thousands of entrepreneurs, researchers, scientists, et cetera, who can provide support, mentorship, and guidance for those of you who are interested in starting this process. In that way, you can get more done without having to rely on reaching out to us for individualized support. Although we do have that available, it's just pending bandwidth.
Okay, great. I guess as the years go by, you'll expand your team and more will be available. So with that, I'd like to wrap up. Arjun, thank you so much once again. It's been such a pleasure listening to you, and I wish you all the best with your work with GFI and all that you do to boost this field.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. So with that, that's a wrap up for today. I hope you all leave today inspired as I am about what the future holds for us.